Well met, goblins,
Oi!
and welcome to another episode of Goblin Salvage Rites.
Because you asked for it. They did ask for it, right?
My name's Robert,
I'm Eric, whether you want it or not.
and today we're talking about
The Shining Kingdoms of
Yes.
Lost Omens.
classic fantasy. This is our first reactions video to
Yeah. Why
Shining
don't people
Kingdoms.
take us seriously?
I don't know, but sharp things are fun.
Yeah.
I'm going to put
I
it away
needed it
now.
after this particular week at work. I think I'm going to hold on to this for a minute.
Okay, well, I'm going to pour us some alcohol.
Please do.
So today we're going to be covering Shining Kingdoms,
Brand new book.
brand new book.
It's a lore book. It's a crunch book. But it's really a lore book.
It's really a lore book.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got pretty pictures.
Paizo's doing this thing where they put lore next to your crunch so that players and DMs want to buy it, which is insane.
So
Am
you
I
eat your
right?
goddamn vegetables.
Exactly.
Can't just have dessert all the time.
Exactly. We're enjoying some Just Rum Pinot Noir Queen Share.
Yep.
Just
Just saying.
Our newest premium release. Hashtag not sponsored.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Yep.
Woo!
Cheers. Cilantro, as they say in the Caribbean.
Yeah. Poontang, as the kids say.
Exactly. So yeah, before we jump into the topic, our first reactions, our first thoughts on this new book, we have to thank
I have a
new
reaction.
patron,
New patron. Who did we sucker into the tribe this time?
Scott.
Scott.
You have a last name written by the editors at Paizo,
Or Star Wars.
which is to say I don't know how to pronounce it. So, Scott, welcome to the tribe.
Yeah, and if
You're
you
awesome.
weren't aware, Fiona is in my van every Sunday. You don't know that song?
Now you're
Scotty doesn't know that Fiona and me do it in my van every Sunday. She tells him she's at church, but she doesn't go when she's on her knees, and Scotty doesn't know. You need some culture, boy. We got some work to do.
you might that one's
Somebody out there
a
needs to know
little too
what
old
that
for
is.
me,
Okay.
Eric.
I'm going to shut up now.
But anyway, so
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you so
are a
much.
welcome addition and hopefully a loud one.
yes, we are publishing new content for our adventure that we're working on right now.
It's getting more exciting.
It's getting more
For
exciting.
us.
We're adding features to the adventure path. Hopefully features that you haven't seen before.
Creature features.
Including some creature features, some replayability features.
Mhm.
And Eric has hidden the books that I'm researching under
Eric
other
is just fucking everything
things.
up this
But
week.
I've been studying some design and layout from indie RPGs
Yeah. Simbarum. Thank you, JP.
and
Cyborg. Also, thank you, JP.
Morkborg, one of the most beautiful books I've ever looked at.
Morkborg, Pirate Borg,
It's crazy.
Cyborg. It's like there's a Borg for every brand of doom metal.
Cyborg is probably one of the most interesting and beautiful laid out books I've ever seen. in
It's
my
really
life.
cool
It's
that you glommed
incredible.
onto that one the way you did. I wasn't expecting it.
And then Index Card RPG, the layout for this book is so approachable and easy to like replicate.
You know how much
While
shit
also
this
being
guy's given me
highly
over the
readable.
past 3 years for how I use index cards, and here he is extolling the virtues of the index card RPG.
I'm just saying it's beautiful.
I'm just saying I was right for 3 years.
As someone who's just learning about layout, it's just blown. All this new information is blown
yeah.
my mind.
yeah,
Yeah,
just
I love
books are pretty.
Books are just pretty.
If you go back to like second edition AD&D games and their books, they're nostalgic and nice. You know, that turquoise blue. I
Yeah.
don't know why they picked that color, and the black and white, but it's very retro. But like now, it's like walking into an art gallery with
Yeah.
dice. I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I've been learning a lot about like layout theory on YouTube and stuff like that, and it's just given me a greater appreciation for
Yeah.
media in general, print media in general.
Yeah, and it makes learning InDesign a lot more fun and exciting.
Yeah, actually, 100%. I mean, I like learning Adobe products, especially now that I know
That's 'cause
3
you're a
or
nerd.
4 of them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I already know 3 or 4 of them, so
Ooh.
the language is like it's
your balls are scraping the floor. We get it.
they are fairly large.
Can't do the wide stance anymore. Any more Adobe products, and you're going to need platform shoes.
All right, let's talk about Shining Kingdoms and move on from my gonads.
Okay.
The first question I think everyone is probably asking is, should you buy this product? Who is this product
you?
for?
I need to know first.
Who is this product for?
Mhm.
That's the real question.
Yeah. What's the audience for this product?
It's about 70%
Me?
lore.
Yeah.
And about
At least.
30%. At least. I did do the page count.
Mhm.
But it's about 70% lore, 30% player options.
Mhm.
So the book is broken up into chapters like world history of this region in Golarion, the classic fantasy religions. They've got detailed sections on countries like Andoran, Druma, Five Kings Mountains, Galt, Kyonin, and Taldor. And then they got monsters in the back.
Yup.
And at the end of each of those country passages is 3 to 4 pages of crunch for players.
Yeah, and it's not the same crunch either. I fully expected to come into this to have it be like the same thing with every entry. You know, here's a couple of magic items, here's a couple of spells, here's a couple of XYZ. But they vary up the types of player options for each of them, so it doesn't get stale after the first 2 or 3 entries.
I will say every country did get an archetype of some sort.
They did, yes.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like, the book is kind of
like...
like...
they didn't actually get archetypes. Like some of them, the archetypes already existed in previous
They got new
books.
options.
They got new options for those archetypes, and I'm super excited to talk about one of them.
Awesome. So that's kind of the layout of the book.
Yeah.
Who is this book for? Like I said, it's for both DMs and players.
It's for people with disposable fucking income is what it is.
I think if you're playing... I actually am of the opinion that this is probably one of, if not the most useful region books ever printed. By Paizo.
Wow, we are going to be on opposite sides of the table on this one. I can't wait.
Hear me out.
This is fascinating. Okay.
Why is this book important and useful?
Mm-hmm.
This is Johnny Fantasy's book.
Remind me again what a Johnny means.
Johnny is as not in like, sorry, John, like John Smith.
Okay.
This is
the
John.
Everyman?
The Everyman. This is John
it.
Fantasy's fantasy book.
Sure.
These are, so the Shining Kingdoms are classic fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
You've got an elf country, a dwarf country, and 4, Eric's taking off his socks over here. Holy shit, we're going to get
Well, I lost a lot of dares in my life.
You get feet pics later, and check out the Patreon, apparently. Woo! But yeah, this is like the most basic fantasy area of all of Golarion.
Your feet smell.
And I would argue that like most people play TTRPGs with all the classic fantasy assumptions.
Yeah.
So if you're going to play the fantasy game in fantasy world, fucking start here.
This is really safe for classic fantasy.
Absolutely.
I was fully expecting them to just sort of like flip the script on this thing and do something weird and fun and exotic like they did with their previous books. The previous books like the Mwangi Expanse, the Impossible Lands, they're also idiosyncratically, regionally specific.
Yeah.
But this book, I've read this in a million other TTRPGs.
Which I think is good.
It is because of that accessibility. It appeals to everybody in the fantasy hero genre.
In order to have a Impossible Lands, in order to have a Tian Sha, you got to have Western fantasy knights with elves and dwarves. And frankly,
I'm going to get a little sour on this one right here.
Sure.
They went so far in that direction.
Yeah.
You have elves with options so you can sing. You have dwarves with options so you can sing. You have humans with options so you can sing. It's Lord of the fucking Rings from page 1 to page 8. They really tripled down on the Lord of the Rings vibe in this one, which is great if that's your thing. I just wasn't expecting it.
What's wrong with that, though?
Paizo has a history of trying to just turning that dial and making it other. So like we're D&D, but we're going to go a few degrees this way and we have our own identity. This one is saying we're Paizo, we have an identity, but we're going to be more like Lord of the Rings. That's one goblin's opinion.
They flipped the script on flipping the script.
Right. They reversed the flippage.
Which makes them...
I think they're stepping on their balls.
Well, I think you might be right. I think this is really valuable for their brand, just because this is now like, are you new to Pathfinder? What's the first?
This is a gateway book for fantasy nerds.
What's the first book I'm going to recommend to you if you're coming from 5th edition?
That's interesting. Okay, all right. I didn't dislike
Shining
this
Kingdoms.
book. Let's make it clear.
Yeah.
I'm going to be saying a lot of things that are going to sound dismissive over this next hour, but I just don't fully understand where I want to sit with this material that I just read a few days ago.
Yeah, we literally
so I
had this
haven't
book
chewed
for
on
like
it for a while.
a week, a literal week.
Yeah. My first reaction is, this is not what I was expecting.
Right,
And
right.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Okay, cool.
So I'm coming to this table with an open mind.
So is this would I recommend this book to you? Yes.
Yes.
If you plan on playing, if you're a GM who plans on running a game with fantasy tropes,
Yep.
this book will help you build a fantasy trope world.
Yep.
That's like kind of interesting in some places.
Yeah. And to add on to that, the GM will find crunch that's useful and lore that's useful. Continue.
Exactly. If you're a player and your DM is going to be running classic Fantasyland, specifically, you're going to be playing in a game from one of the 6 or 7 countries that's listed here. Absolutely pick up this book. All of the archetypes are passable in power, and they're all interesting, but most importantly, they're all really well tied.
Yeah.
That like
The identity is distinctively of this region.
Like every region
they come
has their Hell Knight.
Right.
You know what I mean? Shalaxians
right.
are known for their Hell Knights. That's like the cool
from.
dude.
Their stamp.
Exactly. Every region has their own Hell Knight. Even the ones that you didn't know had their quote unquote Hell Knight, now they do.
Yeah.
Which is pretty rad.
Yeah. And, you know, if you're a GM, get this for the lore, get this for the crunch. I'm going to argue that if you're a player, get it for the lore. I mean, we'll get into this, but every single paragraph in this entire book has action items for players, not just GMs.
Absolutely.
The lore shit, the history shit, the NPC shit, all of it is stuff that players can pluck and go, yeah, this is mine and I know just how to use it. That doesn't always happen with source material, with campaign setting material.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, I want to say yes and yes.
Yeah.
If you're a player, get it. If you're a GM,
disposable income,
get it. Absolutely. Is it a cheap book?
Nope.
Not. What is the MSRP on this? Like,
I'm going to guess 70? 60 or 70.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha. But it's a thick boy.
It is.
And
it's pretty.
It's
again
really pretty.
Images, they're just, they only get better.
So let's talk about what's inside the book.
I thought we were done.
We got a world history.
Okay.
This is, when I say world history, this is like the history of...
You're skipping sections.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, we got a table of contents.
Fuck
Did
the
you
table
not read
of
the whole-
contents. We are the table of contents.
Okay. The table of contents has this really interesting sidebar that says, hey, goblins. It doesn't say hey, goblins, but it should. The next one needs to say hey, goblins. It says this really cool thing, and I'm a sucker for continuity. That's why this attracted my gaze. It says, hey, here are the 15 or so books that have already come out that we're going to reference. Not only are we going to reference them, but if there's an archetype in a previous book, you're going to find an entire page and a half worth of options to support that archetype. Here's the list of books. And these are player books. These are GM books. These are books that are used by both. It's really cool to have a sense of continuity dozens of books later where it's like, yeah, we're still referencing the old stuff. Everything. I'm so sorry. Everything is valid.
Spilled my fancy fucking rum.
I'll lick it up.
$140 for a bottle, Eric.
God damn it.
Lick the leather. Lick it.
Send me a bill. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Caden Killian is going to curse me.
And he's from this region.
He is.
We're talking about it.
I am in a bad way. Anyhow, long story short, too late. The table of contents for every one of these books needs, just take a glance at it just to see what's in it.
Yeah.
And also why it's important. And it's a contextual connection to everything else.
Great point.
That's it. Moving on.
So next we have a section on the history of the region.
You skipped the introduction.
Oh my God. Yes.
Dude, it has the best art in the book.
Okay.
No.
All right,
that's not
Eric.
It's that one. Okay, so there's an explosion in this book, like a full-on Jerry Bruckheimer explosion.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
it's a wedding. And the woman in her flowery wedding dress going all the way to the floor is holding the groom in her hands, in her arms as she's running away. And her footman is holding her shoes as he's running away. So everybody's going to safety, and the bride is the hero of this image, and the two guys are sort of like the damsels in distress.
Right.
I think it's worth pointing out because this is sort of like Paizo showing emotional intelligence for the evolution of its target audience.
Mm-hmm.
We're not the same Paizo fans we were 10 years ago or even 20 years ago. And that one picture in the introduction it just makes me feel like, okay, good. They're making deliberate decisions.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
that's it. Did you know that the next section of this book is a history section?
So anyway, they talk about the history of the Shining Kingdoms. What's cool about it is it really does give you the long history. They start from the very beginning and tell you how we got to here.
They go through the bagats.
Exactly.
And they do that in all these books.
Right.
But this one is anchored to this location, the Shining Kingdoms, composed of 5, 6, or 7 different kingdoms. So in the Mwangi Expanse, you got the history from the beginning of the world. In the Impossible Lands, you got the same thing. But it's all super relevant stuff to this specific location. We've got like 4 or 5 timelines now we can fuck around with. So much juiciness.
And they really, like you said, this is very Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
Dragons play a big part in the history of the Shining Kingdoms.
And dragons are finally cool.
Yes. So we get to see a lot of cool dragon art.
I was looking forward to this.
And especially dragon art that's unique and relevant to this new kind of dragon era we're in.
How it fits in the communities with non-dragons.
Exactly.
You know, dragons and fancy new dragons and bestiaries and monster cores, that's cool. Of course we need that. But at the end of the day, I don't give a shit. I want to see, like, the prophet of Calistrate dragon who joined the religion, just like he just showed up and he was a power player. You don't get to do that in the prophets of Calistrate in Druma. You just don't. It's historically unprecedented. This guy did.
Exactly.
And did it super, super recently, too.
Yeah.
So,
and the important thing is he's a money dragon, like literally the greed dragon, which makes so much sense.
And I'm going to be shitting on this one when we get to Druma.
So, next up, the next section are the beliefs of the Shining Kingdoms. So this is like a religious section talking about the religions of Taldor and Andoran, Galt, Druma, the 5 Kings Mountains, Kyonin, and other faiths, like what religions are in there. They talk about the Tides of Chaos, which is a pantheon.
A new pantheon.
A new pantheon.
Yeah, a new pantheon with important gods that very few people know.
Exactly.
And they're going to be heavy hitters in this new battle cry era that we're moving into.
Yes. The Broken Ghosts, which is like a new sect in Galt, who's having its own new era.
Yeah.
Which
we have a
cool.
new spooky area in Golarion. It used to be the
French Revolution.
Yeah.
It still is.
What's the vampire, werewolf, golem section? Carrion Crown was there?
No, that's Used to Love.
Used to Love, yeah. Used to Love used to be like our, it still is, but that was kind of our stand-in spooky place.
Oh, yeah.
But this is the most haunted
classic
region
Western
in Golarion right now.
Well, I mean, season of like...
It says so in the book.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all the ghosts that came out of the final blades.
Right.
Due to that last adventure.
Right, but there's a bunch of ghosts in the East. I'm just saying.
Lots of spookies.
There's a lot of ghosts in the East.
Yeah.
So we got the Broken Ghosts. They talk about the Eagle Knights.
Yep.
The Lion Blades, which are factions. The Prophets of Calistrate, which is a religion?
Yep.
Question mark? The Shield Wrought Striders of the 5 Kings Mountains, Dwarf Dudes. The Wild Hearts of Kyonin. Oh, come on, Eric. Why do you hate fun?
I hate elves. That's different.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, boo. I just don't like elves because economically they don't.
If you're not playing that archetype in a game with demons, you're not having fun.
If you're not, that archetype is still really good in a game without demons. It's just even better in a game without demons. What game doesn't have demons? It's Paizo. Every game has demons.
That's fair.
But yeah, so that's the end of those are the 2 like intro chapters. We talk about the history and we talk about the religions of the area. Super important. I feel like they really couch how this Johnny fantasy setting is different than what I would describe as like a classic Lord of the Rings fantasy setting.
Okay.
There are many differences from Lord of the Rings. It's not that prototypical.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, fine, Robert.
It's not a 1-for-1, but it's a 1.5-for-1.
So I've got some meme explanations of each country that I just want to blow through, and then I'm hoping we can just go country to country and talk about each country.
That totally works. Cool. I'll shut up now.
Andoran, described as John Democracy. Andoran is the bastion of democracy in Golarion.
It is, and the twist for this is it's not just democracy, it's bureaucracy. But it's positive bureaucracy. So Chiliax is the infernal negative spin, like the dark way bureaucracy goes. Andoran is supposed to be the Arthurian Camelot version of that. This is the optimistic bureaucracy.
The lawful good to the evil good.
I would go with
the
that.
lawful good to the lawful evil. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, exactly.
But like right now in America, in this day and age, we're in this country, we're clearly fighting a bureaucratic fight right now. That's all steeped in our politics. So this Andoran section is super, super prescient right now, and it's kind of like the West Wing, you know, that sort of idealized version of what could be if you happen to follow a particular set of philosophies.
Right.
So Andoran, yes, it's democracy, capital D democracy, egalitarianism, but it's bureaucracy without having it sound like a 4-letter word, and that was really interesting to me.
Cool.
We'll get into more of that later.
Yeah.
Because it's all over the feat selections.
Eric immediately said, "I'll shut up now," and then began.
And I didn't shut up. You see what I did right there? Yeah. Yeah, that was my reaction.
Nose goes.
I only get one a turn.
Druma. You only get one a turn. It's true. Druma, characterized by capitalism. It's a country so capitalistic or mercantile. I wouldn't actually probably call it cap. The econ nerd in me is going to be like, it's not technically capitalism, but it's
actually.
Capital requires. But it's capitalism, the country that went so capitalism, they have a religion about capitalism, which actually gives them powers.
And that's
somehow.
the twist. Yeah,
that's
I
the
like
twist.
that.
Five Kings Mountains, dwarfs.
Dwarfs.
Yep. Moving
Singing
on.
dwarfs.
Wow.
Not from Lord of the Rings.
Definitely not. Have I ever told you I know the Smoky Mountains song from the opening to The Hobbit?
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I like randomly practiced it, and yeah, now I know the song, and I've always wanted to play it, like sing it in like a quartet.
Oh, we should do that for the outro.
That would be hilarious. Galt, okay. Galt is haunted revolutionary France.
Yep, you are not wrong.
Kyonin, elves, but they're from Mars.
I'm sorry, did you say something? I
elf
kind of tuned out.
They're elf swashbucklers, dual-classed and investigators. Lastly, Taldor. Taldor is John fantasy. This is like your typical kings and queens and like, you know, knightly
it's your Regency in decline.
Espionage, Regency in decline. There you go. Yeah. And those are the countries. So we've got Andoran, democracy humans, Druma, capitalist humans, dwarves, haunted revolutionary France humans, Kyonin, elves, and then Taldor, typical fantasy.
Yeah, and this is super, super reductive, but we'll
That's the point.
Specify it later.
Yeah,
it is, yeah.
Yeah. And then monsters.
Just didn't want that to be missed.
We've got 11 new monsters.
Okay, we have 11 new monsters, correct. I don't know if you noticed this or not. We'll just cover this right here. There's a
Crocodile Dragon. Yes, Eric, the Florida man knew that there was a crocodile dragon. Did I steal your thunder? Did I?
Vorvorek, the Florida dragon! Exclamation point.
It's so amazing.
You stepped on my balls, Robert.
If you don't buy this book just for the crocodile
It's
dragon,
crazy fucking artwork.
I will throw hands.
Yeah,
dude.
yeah. It's I don't know what they were thinking, but there it is.
Dude, I love it. So
I
it's
knew
going
you
in
would.
every single one of my
I didn't
games.
know if you were gonna get that far down. I was like, if he doesn't see this, I'm gonna show him.
Yeah,
Sure.
Crocodile Dragon's badass.
So 11
stand
new
a crocodile
beasties,
dragon.
right? But there's a great, really cool chart that says, hey, of all the monsters we have made anywhere in Pathfinder 2nd edition, these are the ones that are appropriate for the Shining Kingdoms.
Yep.
And it gives you a list of like, I forget how many of them there are, but there's like over 100 of them or so across across 9 different books is what it amounted to.
Again, we're in classic
GMs,
fantasy land.
That's what you need.
Exactly. So if you ever run a game in these in these countries, which are all very geographically close, they're all connected to a giant lake.
Yeah.
Like that's the size of like the Lake Michigan, basically. Sure. Break out these 100 or so monsters and you'll have a really cohesive
I think so, yeah.
experience.
And the reason why that's important for me is because now that we have technologies that allow us to do things like filter by monster type on Mimic Fight Club.
Yep.
That doesn't help when you're going for a theme, really. So if you look at this one table on one page, you just hold it out here and you can see all 100+ monsters all at once.
Mm-hmm.
It takes no work, and you can go, oh shit, that's my whole campaign right there. This is level 1 through 20. And these are all themed for dwarves, elves, religious capitalists, blah, 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 blah. And you don't have to do like hours and hours and hours and hours of research finding the perfect monsters. It's right there on that one page. Worth the price of admission.
Absolutely. So let's jump into our first country.
Yeah.
Andoran.
That's right. Positive
again,
bureaucracy, humans, and
democracy.
And
Quote unquote.
yeah. I'll be honest, I didn't really give a shit before reading this book.
About Andoran?
Yeah, and my opinion has raised, but not significantly. So go ahead and start your spiel on here, and I'll start chiming in.
The bastion of freedom,
Mm-hmm.
birthplace of liberty.
Mm-hmm.
Andoran is a country where every life is counted as worthwhile. Every voice has the opportunity to be heard, and every citizen has the chance to change the course of the nation.
So they say. So they say.
So they say. It's a prosperous land of small farming communities, riverside trading towns, and cosmopolitan cities, surrounded by thick forests and soaring peaks. This is...
Everybody has a chicken in every pot.
Yeah, so this is like... To me, this and the last country, which is Taldor.
Yeah.
These two countries are almost, I don't want to call them almost interchangeable, but one is like a little heart gushy, everything is going well.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is just the same tropes, but like everything is not going well.
Yeah, I mean, we have the British Empire in decline,
Mm-hmm.
and then the colonials, the
Exactly.
upstart colonials.
Exactly.
Fast forward about 100 years or so, I forget what the timeline says in here, and you have like Andoran is standing on its own with a active, nation military, and Taldor is like, we have sneaky people who will kill you in your sleep.
Womp. Yeah, exactly. So both of these countries, in my mind, kind of give you the same flavor of fantasy with a darker twist or a lighter twist.
Sure.
And again, I get back to the fact that this book is so important, especially for new GMs who are coming over from like 5th edition or other typical fantasy games, because I would probably wager 60 to 70% of games of Dungeons and Dragons are 60% of most people's headcanon and assumptions of what fantasy world looks and feels like are found in one of these countries.
Sure.
So it is probably one of the most appropriate places to run a game, especially for newer players who are just like, who haven't gotten any experience in immersing themselves in places that have non-typical cultures.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if you want to play the classic fantasy RPG, fucking play it in Andoran. You're going to have a great time.
You know how many board games there are?
Thousands?
Many thousands.
Many
thousands.
Tens of thousands?
What is the one singular board game that everybody agrees is the gateway game for board games? If you're getting into board games...
Settlers of Catan.
It's Settlers of fucking Catan. This book is Settlers of Catan. It's the gateway setting for a classic fantasy game if you're going to use it in the Paizo universe. This is that. We've read the books, we've watched the movies, we've read the mangas. This is elves, goblins, dwarves, humans. It's real staple stuff with just enough of a twist to make it not feel like Dragonlance, not feel like Forgotten Realms, not feel like
for the lawyers to find
Simbar.
it, for the lawyers to be able to give their trademark stamp on it. Exactly.
So yeah, I did appreciate that, but the previous books again were just so good, and they set the bar so high, and they were so distinctly flavorful of their cultures that they were representing with the own voices of the people writing those stories. Tian Xia, Mwangi Expanse, Impossible Lands. And then there's this.
Eric,
this feels like middle-aged white man fantasy to me.
That's because it is.
That's because it is, and I wasn't expecting it.
Why wouldn't you expect it? It's the tip. This is the
track
setting.
record.
Right, but the track record is interesting and important because it's telling of places that we're not used to.
Sure.
It's only, and I would argue the only reason, not the only reason, but the main reason why it's interesting is because it was done so well for cultures that aren't ours.
Sure.
In many ways, this is our culture's fantasy. And
is it?
I think you're disappointed because you were expecting something that wasn't promised in many ways. Like, where else?
It wasn't explicitly promised.
Where else are we going to find
I played this game for 30 to 40 years. This book, I've been playing it since 2nd edition.
Right. There's nothing new under the sun for you.
Yeah.
Except for...
Which makes it a gateway book.
Right.
Which is good and has value.
I was going to say, I just don't want to... I want to make sure that, like, no one is taking Eric's gateway drug,
don't take me seriously,
as a negative thing.
No, not at all.
Like, this is, like, we're not trying to belittle the quote-unquote gateway drug, and you can have interesting and enriching stories just in the Shining Kingdoms. If you never left the Shining Kingdoms, there's enough interest to have a really fun, interesting fantasy game that you and all your friends are going to love
really is, yeah.
and talk about for years.
Yeah, and the fruit to pluck from that particular tree, it's all low-hanging in this book. Every single paragraph has hooks.
Yes.
And Luis Loza said that was part of their design philosophy.
Yeah.
They wanted to have that. So
let's talk about the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest design of this entire book.
All right. What kind of design are we talking about?
So I maybe my memory is just fading, but
that's because you're old.
It's true. I'm 32 now, which
that's
means
old.
I'm an old man. I don't remember previous books having a map with locations of a city for every single country that they covered. This book has a map with locations and people and things going on and espionage for every single, like, one of many major cities in every single one of these countries, which I find wonderful. Like, as a DM...
Are you sure they didn't do that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they haven't done... I mean, grab Impossible Lands.
I was looking for anything in there, yeah. Okay.
Impossible Lands is the best example. So every one of these countries has a big map of the city, of a major city in the area, and it has little location markers on it that have wonderful little plot hooks. I mean, you can just rip this whole cloth right out of...
What you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the cities.
Oh, the cities themselves.
They have entire... I mean, we're talking 5 or 6 pages on a gazetteer of just this major city in a country. Yeah, show me a map of Mekatar.
No fucking way they don't have a map of Mekatar in here. Mekatar,
okay,
map.
There you go. Okay, keep going.
What am I looking for?
I'm just saying, like, other countries. Like, I feel like in previous books they've done one or two countries get a map, but of a city, but not every single country. And that's the thing that really, like...
Yeah, Jean Marais has one. I think there is, like, a major city for each of these. And in this particular book, Shining Lands, they made sure to pick the cities that weren't featured in previous books, like High Helm and stuff like that.
Right.
But
yeah, to be fair,
but you are right. Like the localized gazetteer down to the city level, fucking amazing. And then there's a regional gazetteer out to the like Andoran level, that also has a map. It's yeah. Continue. I like what you're saying.
Yeah. So I just found it really important, especially as a DM who's trying to, like, really wrestle with making games interesting. That I can rip these, like 90% of people who are running a game are probably running a game in Fantasyland. And that means they can rip any of these cities straight out of the book and run them in their own home settings, or just run them right here in Golarion, and it'll fit perfectly fine.
Steal shamelessly.
And I just really appreciated that. And the way they laid it out, like, once you see 2 of them, the formatting is so consistent, unlike other books, that once you see it, you're like, oh,
you can scan at that
country
point.
import, like the country gazetteer, the city gazetteer, and then at the end of the city gazetteer, we
thought
have
about that too, and I love that. The only place I tripped up in there where that wasn't true was when they started mixing around what was available for player options, and there I had to kind of like slow down because the patterns weren't there. But everywhere else, that pattern is just fucking replicatable all the way through that 200 or so pages.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. Every single one of these has an archetype.
Sure.
It starts with an archetype.
Yeah, some have animal companions. A couple of them have new wizard schools.
Right.
A couple of them have, this and that.
So they have.
They don't all have the same categories of player options.
I guess if you zoom out, they have class. They have class player options. They have item player options.
Mhm.
Then they have class, spell, and then item player options.
Mhm.
Like the items are always last, for instance.
Yeah. Arcane schools and animal companions.
Are class player options.
Okay, that's how you're seeing that. I wasn't seeing it that way.
Right.
I was just going by headings.
Right. So
Okay.
like in my mind, it's feats and abilities. And,
Mhm.
and what's cool about Pathfinder is spells are effectively like feats
Mhm.
in many ways.
Sure.
They're just single use abilities that you get to pick a repertoire of.
Mhm.
And then use, whereas like fighter feats are just are abilities you get to use ad nauseum typically because
Okay.
they're actions. So you have
dig it.
you have player options and then you have items, and that's pretty much the consistent layout. And what's cool is like these items, and then you have like skill feats at the end, which are really
I'm
cool.
curious what you think about those because I liked them.
I like skill feats. I mean, the important.
Most people don't.
So okay, skill feats are good in Pathfinder
Mhm.
because they don't make you choose between combat and skills.
Mhm.
That you get one of each.
Mhm.
So, and they don't typically step on each other's toes. Now, unfortunately, there are some skills that are used in combat, and there are skill feats that support them being used in combat.
Mhm.
So, the Munchkin will always kind of lead
Gravitate.
towards those.
Yep.
But they're so specific, and there are honestly so few of them. Like if you're like a grappler, you get one or two skill feats, and then the rest of your 16 levels are skill feats that make your character more interesting.
Empty
So-
calories. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say that like the skill feats that I've seen, Inflame Crowd, Stifle Flames, Vanish into the Land, those are pretty fucking cool.
These are evocative names. I love
Like
them.
they are super evocative.
And they have a distinct national identity here.
That's so important. The designers did a very good job
Mhm.
tying the national identity of the archetype
Mhm.
along with the classes and the items that you find.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Can you imagine if Inflame Crowd was in Geb?
exactly.
Like, oh, that's what you mean. We're incinerating the crowd now. Crowd-sized fireball.
Yeah, we've got Screaming Pinion, Crimson Ghoul's Blood Serum, Breath of Freedom. I mean, like,
I think
these
there
are
was
just,
even like a word with egalitarian or equal or
right.
something in
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Yeah, it's very on the nose.
We got a couple new tattoos. Twilight tattoo.
Oh, I love my tattoos. I've been waiting so
Honestly,
long for a expansion of
we
them.
have enough tattoos now where and tattoo supporting feats, especially
Mhm.
after the new Wizard School book that came out.
Mhm.
That
a viable character maybe on the horizon.
yeah, I think a tattoo character is super viable right now.
Is there a tattoo artist archetype anywhere among the 100 or so of them? If not, can we have one, please? I'd love to play like a Viking tattoo artist.
I mean,
know?
Viking is definitely an archetype you can take.
Right.
I don't think so,
I don't think so either.
but there's definitely something there. Tattoo artist is a feat, a second level skill feat. So yeah, I guess there aren't any archetypes. I can look later though.
One of the things I really appreciate about how Paizo in general does this, and specifically here in this book, with introducing the nations to answer the question, why should the person holding this book give a shit? If you are a GM who is interested in learning how world building even works, what are the things I need to consider? World building, I need to put my mountain somewhere and my river somewhere, and it needs to make sense. Yeah, there is that. But there's a really cool graphic at the beginning of each of these where it lists the capital, the government type, who is the ruler and what is their rank, the peoples or ancestries, if you will, or heritages that populate the place, what languages they speak, the factions, the public factions that are around, what religions are supported in the region, what resources do they have? Are these winemakers? Are these cheesemakers? Are they shipwrights and boat builders, or are they stone cutters? The things that I personally don't always think about item for item when I'm trying to put together my Edgewatch game, right?
Right.
So again, at a glance information is so important if you don't want to spend hours just banging your head against what is it I'm forgetting.
Mm-hmm.
So it just gives you like a handful of when I read the Cheliax Gazetteer and I saw that a huge portion of the southern part of that landscape is vineyards. It's fucking wine. A diabolical vineyard? Oh my God, that's exciting. All of a sudden I'm interested in Cheliax. It's
Because
not
you
just
love
like
wine.
demons and contracts. But
it's demons and contracts sipping on wine.
get you drunk and make you sign on the dotted line. But it creates a dimensionality.
Yeah.
It takes it from, okay, devils are in every game.
And wine is like sophisticated and shit, and like it fits in with the whole sophisticated devils very well.
Yeah, it's like the southern part of France, I think is what they
exactly.
were replicating.
Yeah, totally.
That was my read into it. So if you're a GM and you're looking to just sort of see like how do people world build, quickly,
Mhm.
this is good for that. If you're a player, and I'm talking about me at this point, where I'm like, I need to have a character ready to go for next week's game, and it's a new character, and I really don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick up this Shining Kingdoms book, elf, dwarf, human. Okay, I'll look at the splash page with all this information on it and go, all right, I can use this to kind of like flesh my character out or the feeling or vibe of my character. Super, super quick. Very low brain power for those of us who have 40-hour-a-week jobs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And are trying to fucking run a game on the side because we're stupid. Yeah. So that's I like the how they introduce each of these sections. Just to run off of your point.
Eagle Knights.
Let's talk about the Eagle Knights.
So the Eagle Knights, the Eagle Knight archetype is a really interesting melee support archetype.
Mm-hmm.
They have some cool abilities that offer like dynamic strikes that also help allies.
Mhm.
And they do things like freedom of movement effects, like breaking grapples after striking. The interposing block is pretty cool, where you kind of step forward and put yourself in between another a foe and a friend.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a really good addition to the champion class,
100%.
or any other martial that is really based on protection.
Yeah.
And has a lot of HP to throw
Bodyguard
around.
types.
Bodyguard types. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
It seems like a really fun and like engaging way to play a melee character, I think.
Yeah, I like
it definitely ups the cooperation of melee characters.
And it works with the lore too, because the Eagle Knights they tend to work closely with like alchemical folks and what do we call them in D&D 3rd edition? Arcanists.
Okay.
So like the alchemists and the arcanists kind of they support the equipment that Eagle Knights use to carry out their missions.
Right.
So their access to magic items and spells and the feat selections, that all dances around that kind of flavor as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of flavor you're not going to find in the other archetypes in the other lands. So this feels distinctly Andoran as a result, if you give a shit about the lore.
Yeah, totally. So let's jump into Druma. The peoples of Druma are fucking capitalist-loving, mercantile folk.
They're Scientologists. Call them what they are.
No, the Scientologists are the Rasmorans.
So the Prophets of Calistrade, they run this entire outfit, and their entire thing is to create an afterlife through the acquisition of wealth so that they can shape the mindscape of their afterlife so they can live forever in a 100% designed by them
Yes.
afterlife. It's very kind of like Egyptian, bring your wife and your cat into the tomb with you while they're alive and then sail on into the death sunset.
I absolutely love the cover art for the intro to Druma.
It's good, isn't it?
It's so good.
Yeah,
dude.
describe it real quick.
We're clearly on a boat of some sort. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different people of different ancestries, of different ethnicities. Most of them wearing these dark blue coats with red capes, and then one captain-like figure in all white with like gold trim and blue accents pointing off into a direction like, motherfucker, you're gonna go do this.
Yeah. And
Like,
everybody has expressions on their face that are like calculating
shit,
and kind of like measuring the weight of decisions.
Yeah.
It's cool. It doesn't, at first blush, it looks sinister, but it's just everybody's intense.
Yeah.
And like, where do I get my next buck? There's almost like a frenetic energy to the Drumans.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they're pointing towards some ships
that
are of clearly undead design.
Yeah, undead play a big part in the second edition lore for Druma simply because of its proximity to the Isle of Dread on Lake Incarthen. So when you have a big bad lich who's on an island in Lake Michigan and you live in Chicago and you're a Druman, you kind of you get ready.
It interrupts business.
It does.
These evil undead mindlessly destroying our ships, our
Did you
good
read the
trade
part
ships.
where Tarbafon, like what he's doing to Druma?
Tell us.
It's undead, of course. So the whole idea of the prophets of Kalistrad and Druma in general is we get to the afterlife and we shape it, right? Acquisition of wealth, blah, blah, blah. The people that are in their mindscapes after death, they come back. Tarbafon is like, I'm suspecting it was him because it just makes sense. But like they're all back and they're these pissed off mummy folk going like, how do I get back to my afterlife?
Oh.
I was sipping martinis with little tiny umbrellas in them a moment ago, and now I'm here with you fucks.
Yeah, so he's
and
basically
they're
reanimating
upset
them.
and disoriented, discombobulated, and they're like, no, I did what I was supposed to do, and why am I back?
Yeah,
Tarbafon's up to some fuckery over
their
there.
Undead
It was a really nice twist.
Their undeath wasn't protected. Yeah, and now they're here, and they're like, I want to go back.
Right, and the entire religion of Druma has to reconcile with that. Like, imagine if you're Catholic. And the apostles just fucking came back. The saints, they're like walking around now. And you're like, I thought you were by the throne of God. What happened? No, we got a memo. We were all told to show up right here. And we're not happy about it. We'd like to go back. So what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, they're like forcibly ripped from their...
It was just really cool. And I can't wait to see what the battle cry chapter of Golarion
has to say about it.
Yeah, because there's a mythic shard involved in this somewhere.
Oh, 100%. 100%. One of the things I like about Druma is because it's so trade focused, it seems to be like extra egalitarian. When we looked at Andoran, it seemed to be like ethnically diverse because we're freedom and, they're basically like, colonial America with a bunch of different people from different places around the world all coming together
without the slavery part.
Without the slavery part. Especially without the slavery part.
Right.
To build a free, bring me your weak and you're tired kind of vibe. Right?
Basically all the good stuff and none of the bad stuff about early America.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Druma is like... Listen, there's a bunch of white people and brown people here, and the reason they're here is to make money.
Yeah, and also specifically to play within the rules. Not like in a Chilaxian contract kind of way, but Druma is about like, there's rules for how we acquire wealth.
Absolutely.
Don't be a dick, and just stick to the prophets of Kalistrad, and you'll do fine. But you guys, you got to eat right. Cut that shit out of your diet. You got to sharpen your mind, meditate. And don't be a dick. That's kind of the dramatic way. And then make your bucks along the way and then die. And
to me, this is like far more realistic than Andoran. Like to me.
Oh, totally. Like, Andoran's a cartoon to me.
Exactly. Andoran's absolutely a cartoon. This is just like, a bunch of these people get along because they're all making money with each other. And I'm like, all right, okay, that makes sense to me. You know what I mean? To me, that's the America I know, because in many ways, this is fantasy land for 40-year-old white dudes, as you so eloquently put it. So I see a lot of reflections of American culture and American Western like fantasy in this. So
or at least how it's portrayed in the movies.
Well, no, that's what I'm talking about. Western, that's Western fantasy, is it not?
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have ideas of pure democracy. We have ideas of a working, mercantile.
We sure used to
a country of mercantilism where trade is greater than the sum of its parts and stuff like that. And of course, it has some dark sides and some sneaky, some like fishy parts to it. But generally, it works, right? Tell me about
Are we still in Druma?
Matriculum.
Okay, so I have a section on nearly all of these categories called Token Dragon.
Token Dragon.
So they tried to kind of sort of put a dragon in each of these areas because
In each country.
dragons in and of themselves, they're fun, they're fine. You know, we grew up with them. We're kids. We're like, ooh, dragons. But I've never really cared that much.
What
I mean,
the fuck,
a red dragon
Eric?
is a red dragon is a red dragon, right? A gold dragon is a gold dragon is a gold dragon. That's kind of like been the history of D&D. They haven't really had
It's D&D.
distinctive personalities.
What does D&D stand for, Eric?
TTRPG in the D20 family of games.
No, D&D stands for Dungeons and Dragons.
Mhm.
Say it with me. Dungeons
Dungeons and Dammits
and Dragons.
and Dagons.
So if there's not dragons near my dungeon,
Yeah.
I better be asking what the fuck.
So, goblins, if you have a dragon in your game and that dragon doesn't have a name and doesn't have a motivation, doesn't have a history, and it's just a collection of hit points and a collection of coins at the end of their stat block, and you just run into that for 30 years, you're not going to give a shit about dragons. But each one of these has a very distinctive personality and identity,
Yes.
and they shape the events of the region and the gazetteer around
Eric's
them.
got
like,
dragon-
literally sometimes.
Eric's got dragon baggage. All right,
Yeah,
guys?
I've got so much baggage.
Heaps of dragon baggage.
Yeah, I need servants to carry my baggage. I've got so much. So Token Dragon for Druma, we have Matriculum, which is an interesting name, is an omen dragon.
Mhm.
Now, the idea of the omen dragon is that they're prescient to a degree.
Yeah.
They can see glimpses of the future. That's a huge deal in the setting because omens are fucked. They're corrupt. This is the age of lost omens. You know, divination ain't what it used to be, you
Mhm.
know? So these omen dragons are kind of almost like they're hinting at possibly a resurgence of the old Golarion before the age of lost omens. So that's my personal take.
He also invaded the religion.
Yeah.
The Calistratic religion.
Yeah. So, you know, getting into the prophets of Calistrate is no easy task. You know, it's kind of like, I don't know what it's like. It's like trying to be a cardinal in the Catholic Church. You know, there's only so much room and there's only so many of them and blah, blah, blah. It's kind of an elite organization within the nation of Druma. And you don't just like walk in and get a leadership role unless you're this dragon. So this is sort of like a new moment, you know, it's just unprecedented in the history of this particular nation.
Unless you're
And
a
here's this fucking dragon who showed up and is getting all the gold
Yep.
and
He's
is
like,
carving an afterlife for themselves.
pay me the money.
Why are you here? What's going on here? Is there a mythic shard involved in this somehow? What
I twist my mustache.
is this guy going to subvert the religion of Druma and just like core it out to acquire the wealth so nobody else gets the afterlife and only it does? I mean, dragons are gonna dragon, right?
They're not gonna live forever. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
So we have our token dragon and omen dragon for the mercantilistic religious nation of Druma.
So I'll talk about the prophets of Calistrate. I
we
wrote
have
my
to.
notes. A capitalistic monk, but that's not really appropriate because they're not monks. They're highly social caster types. They're almost
Yes.
like capitalist clerics
Mhm.
in design.
Like Abadarian.
No,
No?
that's the interesting part. Guess what type of spells they cast, Eric?
Occult.
Exactly. Which means that they are distinctly not a religion.
Right. They're like Abadarian. So like in the same vein as Razmaran is, they're priests.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in my notes, I put focus features occult spellcasting, which in Golarion can sometimes represent feigned holiness.
Mhm.
So it's really important to know, like, to understand here that this is like a pseudo religion in a world where religions are real.
Mhm.
The power is felt on a daily basis.
Right.
When you have a fake religion and you have to cast occult spells to fake your divine favor, it's a big deal.
It makes me wonder if this particular omen dragon is the original prophet of Calistrate and has just come out.
Oh.
Like kind of like a witch and their patron.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this guy is like the patron of the whole organization. Is that where we're going? I don't know.
So the prophet of Calistrate uses a lot of social abilities, a lot of it's a
They're
very
community leaders.
it's a very charisma focused archetype. What's cool about them is they have a couple fortune effect influencing abilities, which I found pretty interesting.
Very occult.
Which I find pretty interesting and very they're very money themed. In my opinion, the archetype is pretty mid. It's not super interesting as an archetype. It doesn't do a lot of interesting mechanical things either.
I think I can't take it seriously.
I can't either.
Like, I play a lot of Final Fantasy, and in every Final Fantasy, well, not every Final Fantasy, but in enough of them, there's a gambler character who flies an airship or something.
Yes.
And, god damn it, every couple of levels, you get another goofy shit ability where it's like, throw your deck of cards out and spear everybody in the room.
Exactly.
Put your hands in the air and rain coins from the sky.
Literally.
Which literally is in this.
Yeah.
It's just so video gamey. It's it was cringy for me.
Okay. It flew too close to the sun. Yeah, okay.
Continue.
So the I'm not a big fan of the archetype, but I am a fan of the School of Calistrade Uncommon Arcane School.
That was
Wizard
kind of
School.
interesting. Yeah.
So the
Can
Wizard
you turn
School-
this so I can see it a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Wizard School has 2 abilities. Obviously they have a list of spells. But the
Capital dividend is so cool.
I know. So so the 2 focus spells you get from a Wizard School are one of the most important things that you get from Wizard School, especially based on your thesis. So the first ability, Unexpected Windfall, is a 2-action focus spell, range of 30 feet, targets 1 creature, fortitude save, and it forces encumbrance by raining coins and jewels on your opponent. The encumbered condition is pretty fucking good.
How many of you use the encumbered rules?
When
I
it's-
didn't think so.
When it's not in a spell, not very many of us.
Right.
So when you go to look at
This thing encourages minutia.
exactly when you go to see the encumbered condition, it's actually pretty fucking useful.
It is, yeah. If you use it.
And then capital dividend.
I love this one so much.
Reaction. It's a reaction. The trigger is when you would be reduced to 0 hit points, but not immediately killed. So I just optimization corner with Robert.
Mm-hmm.
Historically speaking, wizards are squishy. So whenever you can have a key ability allow you to cheat death, especially as a squishy wizard, it's highly valuable.
Yeah. Power word finger.
Power word finger. This is power word finger. And what's cool about this book, this is like secretly an incredible addition to Wizards.
Right.
Like this book, because there's another uncommon school in this book that's way better than this, which is hard to believe because this one literally lets you cheat death. So the ability
who
reads,
has this? Go ahead, do your thing. And
so through diet and other strict regimens, which I can't even, you fortified your body as Calistrade's teachings have fortified your mind. So basically when you get reduced to 0 hit points, you remain at 1 hit point and your skin takes on a slight warm glow. For the next minute, anytime you would regain hit points from a healing effect, the magic amplifies the effect and you regain additional 8 hit points. And then it can be heightened and that increases the additional healing.
Yeah.
So as a reaction, with a focus point, you cheat death. You don't get the dying condition. You don't get the injured condition. None of that happens. You're at 1 hit point. And then when you get healed for even more.
right.
This alone is almost worth taking because it's so cheesy.
It is. And you know where they got the idea for this? Fight me if you think I'm wrong.
Tell us in the comments.
You ever watch Constantine, Keanu Reeves?
Yeah, of course. I love that movie.
Right. Do you remember the scene towards the end where he's dying, basically?
Right.
And he starts floating towards the pearly gates of heaven. And he looks at Lucifer. And he just kind of slowly gives the finger. And he's dying. And Lucifer is like, no. And he sucks all the cancer out of him.
Right.
And he gets to live now.
Stops him from dying.
This is that scene in Constantine
Yes.
without the goofy shit coins raining from the sky. Yeah.
It's fucking awesome.
That's exactly what I saw in my mind movie when I read that. And reskinning this is the way to go because this thing
Yeah.
is just kind of ridiculous as is.
Yeah, Constantine is a wizard.
I love the idea.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Not an investigator. No.
So the other archetype we have is the Black Jacket.
This one was cool.
What did you like about it?
It's more of a thematic thing I liked about it. They're
You're gonna love my number one comment. Keep going.
okay. Let me see that screen because I need words to kind of shake my brain here.
So Blackjack dedication, belay that.
These are the Black Jackets,
Right.
and they're sort of like elite guards. I thought of these guys as almost like the mercantile version of the Secret Service, where you kind of like go into the organization and they teach you how to fight, subdue, how to protect, just essentially how to be like a top tier A-list guard type figure.
To me, they're professional privateers.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Blackwater types.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about that is our historic 40-year-old white man fantasy, going all the way back to early D&D, is the Caravan Guard. How many of our campaigns start out as Caravan Guards?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's sort of like the thing you do until you can get a real job as an adventurer.
Mm-hmm.
Not anymore.
Absolutely.
So this brings a lot of really cool sort of like meat, potatoes, and integrity, and just excitement and fun to higher levels of being a Caravan Guard. I love that. I've been wanting that for years. What is your number one comment?
No wonder you love it, Eric, because this is basically just an alternate take on the investigator class.
I hate you so much right now. Where's my knife?
So what's amazing about this archetype is level 4. You can either pick a really good feat called belay that, which I'll talk about in a minute, or you can take mercenary
That one's so goofy.
motivation.
Yeah, I forget which one that was.
A large part of being a mercenary league entails doing mercenary work. Huh. You don't say. You spend 1 minute planning a course of action that will allow you to complete a task you've been hired or requested to do. Start an investigation. Work with your GM to determine the circumstances of any job or task, if need be, but typically they can involve protecting a place or person, defeating a foe or enemy or force, or retrieving an item. The course of action you plan must be something you believe you can accomplish. And then you get like active plan, you get on the job, you get finishing a plan. So you literally have open investigation. Find clues to your investigation.
Look, all I'm saying is
Complete
when
your
I made an
investigation.
investigator, I didn't have access to a llama that can blind and dazzle my opponents.
Yeah, the llama's pretty badass.
That makes us superior right out the
Absolutely.
gate.
One of the animal companions that comes with this is a llama called...
That llama kicks, spits, and dazzles.
The
What more can you
Bacalia.
ask for?
It's pretty badass, honestly. The art for it is
so cool.
the art for it is amazing too.
I want to go
But,
back and watch my...
Going back to the really good feat that you would take instead of this pseudo investigator. It's a reaction at level 4.
Mhm.
An ally within 30 feet of you has critically failed a strike. How many
That's me.
times has Eric critically failed a strike?
I'm the problem, it's me.
You can recognize when a strategy isn't working and advise your ally to change course. Hey, idiot, don't hit there.
Yeah.
The next strike the triggering ally makes before the end of their turn has the same map as the critically failed strike, but it counts towards their multiple attack penalty. So let's say that Eric is playing a classic martial class that isn't a fighter, and he makes his first strike with a plus 12, and he critically fails, as he often does. The black jacket in the party can be like, hey, idiot, don't swing your sword like that. And Eric's character will be like, oh, yeah. And then try again.
I learned a thing, stick.
At the same map, which is super important here.
Yeah.
Of course, your third strike is going to go to a
It goes back to
10,
normal.
but that's fine. Getting one strike in is better than getting 0.
Yeah, and you can just pick a different action.
Exactly.
So I want to build like the actually black jacket.
The actually?
Yeah. It's like,
actually?
it doesn't
it's,
work that
actually?
way. You're pointing your gun the wrong direction. You're going to hurt yourself.
Some other cool feats are battlefield agility that allows you to strike and step.
Yep.
Um,
Just martial shit.
lead by example. They've got some
There's
really...
almost like a not battle wizard, but like a like a tactical warrior
Yeah.
quality to this. Or
It
maybe
has a lot of
tactical
tactician,
rogue, tactical warrior,
like a tactical fighter.
tactical fighter.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, like a support tactical fighter in a. Yeah, it's like
Which
a support
again, we're
tactical
going into
fighter.
battle cry. So, is this going to step on the toes of the marshal? What's it called?
Yeah, I think it's called a marshal.
Yeah.
I don't think so. But from what I've heard, the archetype, the class has changed a lot since the playtest. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, can we talk about dwarves?
No, because they released a whole book about them.
Okay, we can skip them.
Yeah.
Except there's a token dragon.
Okay, so Five Kings Mountains is the next country. There's a whole book we never covered on the Five Kings Mountains, which I still feel super bad about, honestly.
Yeah. The book is like 10 pages long.
Is it really that short?
It's probably the shortest of the of the regional books. It's not like a fucking Firebrand short, but it's not far off.
I feel bad because I was really hoping we were getting a Kyonin book or an Elves book,
We got an adventure path instead.
and I don't think we're ever getting it.
I
Yeah.
hope we don't. But that's one man's
Fuck
one goblin's
off,
opinion.
Eric. Elves are cool.
Why do you like elves?
They?
Name one. No, don't. It's not worth it.
I think elves in Golarion, and we'll get to this in the Kyonin section, but like the Golarion elves are just weird enough to really make them feel like their own flavor of elf to me, and make them feel like they're not typical fantasy, or at least the alien vibes that typical fantasy tried to give elves always fell flat to me. And Paizo elves actually feel pretty alien in cool and interesting ways.
Yeah, for as much shit as I give Tolkien and his Lord of the Rings elves, they feel alien to me.
Really?
It's the idea of like, I've lived 3,000 years old. Why am I explaining this to you? No.
Yeah, it's just to me their culture and their architecture styles were always too similar to humans, and they always just felt like old humans to me.
Tree houses with
They're
old humans.
Old treehouse humans.
Yeah.
Instead of being
Old treehouse humans. That's what an elf is.
instead of being like badass, like long war espionage motherfuckers that they are in Kyonin, where they're fighting like an eternal war against demons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like to me, that's a little more interesting. So let's talk about the dwarves and how they sing and how they shave beards. The opening picture to this is a dwarf shaving another dwarf's beard.
That was a nice touch. I like that.
that was
Typically when you get like razor blades and shaving kind of things, there's usually some sort of murder cult involved.
Yeah.
This is a super domestic moment with like masculine dwarves, just like in a brotherhood moment. It's a very slice of life moment. I appreciated that.
So yeah, the Five Kings Mountains goes over this typical fantasy dwarven kingdom. This is about as close to Tolkien dwarves as you can get, honestly. I honestly don't have a lot to talk about here.
Okay. All right.
Talk to me about this. Talk to me about this dragon.
So we know that Tar-Baphon is sort of the quintessential lich for the Pathfinder setting. So like Acerak was that for Greyhawk and D&D just in general. You have an archetypal lich, you have an archetypal this, an archetypal that, a vampire. I'm just knocking shit over all night. The archetypal dragon, the signature dragon in the Paizo setting, from my understanding, is a big-ass nasty piece of work, a big old red dragon, but now they're called cinder dragons. And his name is, come here, you little bastard, Daralathixel. So this token dragon here is a Nandrixith. It's a conspirator dragon and the granddaughter to the Big Daddy Red Dragon that is causing all sorts of hell throughout the landscape because somebody who went into retirement and decided just to gracefully age out and go quiet got a mythic shard of Gorum and is ready to come back. So this Grandpapa Dragon who is on his way out and the new generation is going to come in, he's like, nope, I'm back. I'm going to run for president.
JK, he got steroids.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of like Cinder Dragon shenanigans going on.
Steroids and lip injections.
And he's like the Smaug of the setting. And,
Absolutely.
Again, we're back in the Lord of the Rings territory. Yeah. So I feel like we're going to get a lot more draconic activity in this battle cry era we're moving into, specifically in the Shining Lands. So we're gonna get like the
Shining
Lich active
Kingdom.
kingdoms, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, she is a conspirator dragon, and conspirator dragons are exactly what they sound like. They don't come in and eat your house.
Yeah.
They come in and they poison the mind of the guy who's going to site your house and get it razed to the ground in a bureaucratic fashion.
Exactly.
So I kind of really dig that idea of like hollowing the dwarves out from the inside rather than just there's an assault at the gates, which is kind of the Smog approach.
Yeah.
So I like that twist.
Dwarves represent like defense and strongholds.
And and they're building a big old nasty like shield around the Five Kingdoms Mountain, High Helm.
Yeah,
and this is a really cool touch. Kudos to you guys when you did this. The dwarves finished building this amazing defense thing, right? And they're selling space to other ancestries behind it.
Yep.
If you want to be safe in the upcoming apocalypse, come on down to High Helm. We got space for you with a low rate of 5,000 gold pieces for 20 square feet.
They literally built like $1 million bunkers and are selling them to the richest people in the world.
They're survivalist dwarves now.
I love it. Survivalist dwarves. They're tinfoil hat wearing survivalist dwarves.
So this is
they're prepper dwarves. They're prepper dwarves. Yeah.
And that's kind of why I'm a little sour on the elves. I don't feel like they have their version of that.
Okay, yeah.
Insofar as I have been exposed to,
Gotcha.
They're just like, we're elves and we don't like demons or fungus creatures. That's really been my experience with elves in this setting.
Got it.
And they marry amazing priestesses.
So the player features, the class features are the more stalwart defender feats. Yeah. Honestly, these are...
I was lukewarm.
Pretty mid. This is probably the lowest point in the book, if I'm being honest.
Really? That bad? Okay.
They're just... There's nothing here...
I wasn't inspired. I don't think they were necessarily bad. I just... the
coolest
it didn't
part
excite my imagination.
Is the Grindle Drakes.
That was cool. Yeah. And how...
the Grindle Drake is a familiar that is like a little bug dragon that was genetically engineered from grubs who would eat trash that they would, use to keep, like garbage heaps.
Yeah.
They would manage their waste with these grubs. And then some dwarf genetically engineered them 100 or 200 years ago to become little flying pseudo dragons.
Right. And they also ate them because they're high sources of protein.
Right.
So something Paizo does really well, and this is world building again, is they took a real problem. Where do we put our shit?
Yeah.
This is the London problem back in the 19th century.
Yep.
And they came up with the solution. And so they brought these grubs in. Well, it turned out they're pretty damn tasty and they're pretty nutritious. So the dwarven infrastructure kind of dovetailed into dwarven cuisine, which dovetails into like animal husbandry of a sense,
right?
Which dovetails into player options.
Yeah.
What other game really does that?
Yeah, absolutely.
It usually just starts at player options, but there's like the lore and the crunch. They're inextricable in this specific example, and that's the kind of stuff I want to see and make for Goblin Salvage Rites.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. It's great publishing. Yeah. It's great writing, great editing, great publishing.
Just it starts pushing that literary condition that I really want to help this hobby elevate to, at least as an option. One of the things I love about the Dwarven section is how they took the concept of runes and they turned them into designer filigrees. So the Dwarven clan daggers for Golarion have always been interesting to me, but there's really nothing there. I mean, it's this is my family clan dagger. It's kind of like a signet ring, right?
Yeah.
But with these filigrees, each clan dagger can be its own thing. And with these filigrees and maybe turn it into, what is that item? The relics. You can finally, using the rules, take something that was kind of a cool idea that didn't quite get across the finish line and turn it into something that's fun to play at the table. It's not just a triangle-shaped dagger.
Right, yeah.
So it took us 20 years to get there, but we got there.
So what's interesting about the Galt cover photo,
we should probably buzzsaw through the next bit,
is that there are 9 people in this bar and 4 ghosts.
Yep.
which almost suggests the sheer amount of fucking ghosts there are in Galt. So the story with Galt is that they were revolutionary France. They had revolution for 100 years or something like that. And they had the secret society of KGB agents called the Grey Gardeners, who basically would take magically infused blades and kill people and store their souls in these giant guillotines.
Eventually,
so when I say French Revolution, I literally mean guillotines in the street.
It's the reign of terror.
So something happened in an adventure path that we will not spoil completely, but there was a Grey Gardener adventure, like a
deluxe adventure.
A deluxe adventure. I hate the fucking names for that. So annoying. A deluxe adventure. Okay.
I feel like there should be like chits and dice and maps and deluxe adventures, like stuff above and beyond the printed material.
Exactly. Anyway, product differentiation aside, they broke the guillotines. And when they did that, they were these legendary items that were pent up with thousands of souls.
Yeah.
And when they broke them, they shattered everywhere.
Yeah. There was a specific ritual that they used to unmake them.
Yes.
And
that
most
fucked up
of
at the
them,
last moment.
It worked. Some of them didn't work.
Exactly. So they broke, and all of the ghosts piled out.
Yeah.
All those trapped souls just blew up.
Yeah.
Like in the Scooby-Doo movie.
Did you have the haunted mansion in the Florida Disney World?
I did. I was more of like a Universal Studios and Busch Gardens guy.
Yeah, I was thinking, the haunted house in Disneyland when I was reading this. Like, yep, ghosts fucking everywhere, but not Goofy. So
I'm pretty
a little bit
serious.
of Harry Potter in here, actually.
Yeah,
Headless Nick.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Nearly Headless Nick.
So there are a cool collection of French people and ghosts. Baguette. Oh, headless baguette.
I'm an elf.
I'm an elf.
I'm a gnome. Where's my head?
Oui, baguette, croissant. And then this badass photo of a bunch of souls
That's the Great
amalgamating into a monster called the Great Ith.
Yep.
Which is the Great Death, sorry. Which is super cool. So Galt was always super boring to me until now.
Yeah.
Now that there are ghosties everywhere and the revolution has ended, quote unquote, and we're in a new dark era of...
Where do we go from here?
Yeah, and what's cool about it is they say here the two religions that are fighting over control of this area are Urgathoa and Caden Kalian.
No,
right?
It was Pharasma and Urgathoa.
Oh, it was Pharasma and Urgathoa. Okay, yeah.
The two death deities, basically.
Got it. So, like, the two death deities are fighting over the future of this kingdom. Urgathoa is like, fuck it. The revolution's over. Let's fucking party. Shit's whack. We got ghosts everywhere. Might as well enjoy yourself while you can.
Yeah.
And Saren Ray is just like, hold up a minute. Yeah. let's
Pharasma.
Pharasma. Let's take stock and kind of just like go through the process of processing all of these undead and slowly but surely get them out of here.
We got to get them into the River of Souls, you guys.
Exactly.
No, we don't. We got to raise them and eat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The gazetteer for the city I found was really interesting because it's a classic river city, which would be useful in almost any game.
Yeah.
And yeah, do you have anything else to say about the lore?
I'm not the lore so much. Anything lore wise I have to say would spoil the adventure, and I don't know who really gives a shit. But if you care about why this was revolutionary France, as we're calling it, the reign of terror, there's a specific monster in one of the monster books that's the cause of all of this. So when it comes to world building, and I want to make a really big bad BBEG that's got like 14 heads, 32 arms, and 2 teeth, and one of them's really sharp, and you just want to make that really just distinctive monster that's responsible for everything. This guy did it. That's what Galt is. Like everything in this gazetteer is downstream of a monster entry. And I thought they did it pretty well. And, it ended well, but now we're dealing with aftermath. So at the end of every adventure path, you beat the BBEG. What comes next? That's the story of Galt right now in this moment. and it's not all roses.
It definitely it's half roses maybe.
So the two things I wanted to say on this one is for the player options, we got more for the ghost archetype, which was in Book of the Dead.
Fucking
And they
love
really
the ghost
doubled
archetype.
down on the idea of the headless horseman for
Yes.
this. And I just love the feats where you can like use an action to pull your head off, and 2 levels from there you can get another feat to take your head and make it a projectile weapon.
Yep.
You can like hide behind a wall and get full coverage, and then put your head up over the wall, and you can look around while still getting the benefits of full coverage.
Jacques
Lots of really cool stuff there.
played a ghost in one of our games
Mhm.
and just took the silliness up to 11.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I can't see the ghost as anything but silly. And I would have loved to see Jacques.
You ruined
playing,
it, Jacques.
I would have loved to see Jacques playing a ghost with these feats.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
That would have been amazing.
So I really like the ghost. I don't have more to say than that. It's just like ghost, headless horseman. Go for it. if that's
They're
your
not
thing.
good, but they're really fun.
Yeah. And they let you do things you would typically need to have access to wizard spells or sorcerer spells or bard spells to do.
Yeah, in the
Probably
same
wizards.
in the same vein,
Arcane spells.
that like a lot of the undead archetypes,
Mhm.
like half of them are really serious and they take themselves seriously, like the vampire.
Mhm.
And then the others, like the skeleton, which isn't an archetype, it's a
That one's fun.
The skeleton is an ancestry.
Mhm.
The zombie and the ghost and the mummy a little bit. They all have like really fucking weird and zany abilities
Mhm.
that make sense, and mechanically they're
To
actually
dial up the gonzo.
kind of good, but they really dial up the gonzo. I
Nice.
mean, the skeleton can collapse its bones in reaction to taking it a critical strike and negate the critical damage.
Yeah.
Which is like good, but like also fucking hilarious that they just like, we all have the sound of bones clattering to the ground in our minds.
Right,
You know
right,
what I
totally.
mean? And this has that same flavor.
Yeah. Do you remember, moving on from the ghost, unless you have anything to add to that?
Yeah.
Do you remember a classification of items in the treasure vault called the archetype artifact?
Yes.
Or
The-
artifact archetypes?
The bear cloak.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yes.
Was that the only one?
No, there
I thought
are.
there was like a
there's-
single one in that book.
There was a single one. It was like the
Okay.
bear cloak.
It was that one,
Yeah,
right?
but there's been like 2 or 3 more made since then.
Since then, okay. Well, now we have another artifact
Yeah.
archetype called the Splinter of Finality. Yeah. Anyhow, it's the one of these blades, one of these guillotine blades, and or at least a splinter of one as
Yeah,
it was
a
destroyed.
shard,
And blah blah
yeah.
blah, a shard, and yeah, it just does artifact level stuff. But the idea being
It's a rare artifact. It's a rare archetype.
all the stuff it does is Galton in flavor.
Super
all the way
fucking
down to the
edgy,
last
dude.
word.
It's so
It really
edgy.
is, yeah.
yeah.
But it's not the sort of thing I would expect to see anywhere else on Golarion.
Yeah, that's true.
It just seems like, of course, it comes from here, and I appreciate that. Lore, crunch together makes me happy. That's all I got to say about Galt.
It really does drip with like that French Revolutionary cringe.
Oh, they had some cool companions in here too, didn't they?
Yeah,
Like a rolling head or something.
Yeah, so the companions, we've got Severed Head.
Yeah.
It's a companion you can have. The Gray Bladeling,
Mhm.
which I found was interesting.
Yeah. I like the crunch. The idea of that was kind of like
14-year-old Robert
Yeah.
would have loved to have a dude made of swords walking around with him.
right. Eats nothing but shish kebab,
Exactly. Like, that's just amazing.
like Edward Scissorhands, but
Though your whole body
All
is Edward
scissors.
Scissorhand. Yeah. Exactly. Oops, all scissors.
minus the Edward.
Exactly. All right. So yeah, moving on to
Kyonin we can skip.
You're cute.
All right.
Kyonin, land of the elves
All right. Tree hugger, capital of the
and
world.
tree houses.
Yeah.
So Kyonin lives on the coast and is right next to Druma, I believe. So they have a lot of influence over Tarbafon in his island. You can actually see it from the map that they
Mhm.
have on the
They're
opening.
affected by it. Yeah, they got that
Yeah.
proximity problem.
exactly. And the elves are all about teleportation and gates because they
Yeah.
came here from Mars.
Which is interesting
Thousands of years
because
ago.
teleportation works differently in second edition than it did in first edition,
Mhm.
and it's been really powered down. How does that make the elves interesting in second edition because they're all about gates and portals.
It basically what it does is it suggests that they're way more powerful than they ever were before.
I like that read. I
do
really do, because before it was kind of like, I don't know, you're kind of nerfing the one thing they're known for.
Yeah, exactly. So what's cool about this thing is they talk a lot about the history of elves on Golarion. This is really that mini book on elves that we're getting in like 1 or 2 chapters. And they talk about the exodus from Mars. I keep calling it has an in-game name, but it's fucking Mars.
Yeah, Castrovel.
Yeah. The corruption that they experienced, the return, the reign of Telinda, who is the current queen.
I think you spelled Galadriel wrong, but continue.
Yeah, right. So she is like
God,
this.
I love that art.
Yeah.
Oh, that was one of the better ones in the book.
High elf, absolutely.
I thought I was looking at an Irriseni witch when I saw that.
What I love about the elves is they don't have pupils and they have big fucking bug eyes.
Yeah.
I love the little random owl dude.
I know, right?
Who's in the side photos.
It gives me Secret of Nim vibes all over.
It does. Oh my God. Secret of Nim. Shout out to Secret of Nim fans. So yeah, they've got a bunch of really cool stuff. The only thing that I was pretty mid on was, this fucking epic castle made of glass is just it's so epic.
Yeah.
And magical. It's like hyper magical.
Yeah, you don't get that stuff anywhere else in Golarion that I've seen, except maybe like the Arc Lords of Nex.
Yes.
Whenever you see Nexian architecture, that's the closest we get to that. But this is Warhammer Elves level of architecture. And
in Warhammer, in Golarion, old generally means powerful. Right? So the Arc Lords of Nex are super old. They're from thousands of years ago. They enslaved the...
Is that true?
Yeah. They enslaved the Cyclops Eye to build giant cities all over Golarion in the Inner Sea.
I guess I haven't read that much about him.
And then they fell apart. Elves are the same, but they've been fighting a war with demons for so long that it's held them back from ever growing as a civilization.
Big ass dragon demon lord just camped out on their southern border and just spit out fungus demons.
And Dree Razor has finally been defeated.
He has, that's canon.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that was going to be canon or not, but apparently it is.
So now that he's been banished back to his realm or whatever, they're finally...
I think he's dead.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
I don't actually... I need to reread the chapter. I honestly... we had to skim through this whole book.
Right.
And the elves were the one I wanted to read the most, but couldn't get to.
Right.
So when we're done with this episode, and if we ever do another episode about this book, I definitely am going to read all of the elf section from tip to tail.
Yeah, the elf section was the one I wanted to read the least, and I really wish I would have spent more time on Taldor.
Okay, let's skip to the archetype then.
Sour grapes. What about the Wilder Heart archetype? Any
really
thoughts on
cute
that?
Dog art.
Yeah.
The dog's super
No argument
cute.
here.
So if we're being honest.
That is a really cool piece of dog art.
Yeah, the dog.
If you're into doggos, check this out. What page is that?
Page 146.
146. Look at it.
So the Wild Heart archetype is just good.
Okay.
It is demonstrably, arguably, the best things, the most powerful things that have the uncommon or lower archetype or tag are the elf stuff.
Okay.
So Wild Heart is a pseudo ranger. You get an animal companion, but you also get a bunch of demon hunting themed abilities.
Yep.
What's really cool about this is demons are in like every adventure path ever published.
They are, yeah.
So if you're playing any typical adventure path or if you're playing any classic fantasy, you're probably going to run into a demon.
Yeah. And
when you do, you're going to be able to kill it. If your whole adventure revolves around demons in any way, motherfucker, you're a demon hunting elf from Kyonin. Boom. There's your character.
Wrath of the Righteous is where I would play this in a heartbeat.
Exactly.
I don't know that I would play it anywhere else unless I had a GM that built stories around the characters.
Yeah.
But if I just played this and went to a fucking convention, I might be bored.
I traveled north from Kyonin to help you push back this menace. How cool is that?
Yeah. I'm in. I'll buy the tickets. Transposition spells sound kind of cool.
Hold on. We're not done. We're not done, Eric.
We're still talking about elves.
Yes, because the focus spells are bussin'. as the kids might
All
say.
right. Continue.
Menacing. So they get access to some level 2 focus spells, some level 4 focus spells. Menacing Lament is a level 2 focus spell. You get it at 4th level.
Mm-hmm.
1 action, 1 round, 30-foot emanation. All enemies in the area are off guard against your attacks and gain no benefits from flanking you for the duration, which is 1 round. No save.
Just happens.
Just happens.
Mm-hmm.
Every rogue just creamed their pants. Okay? So good. Valiant Anthem. +1 status bonus to all attacks. And 10 plus bonus to speed for 1 round. 30-foot emanation, 1 round, 1 action. Both of these are just useful. They're just good.
Put that on a fighter.
They're just good. Put that on a fighter. Put that on a rogue. Put that on literally any martial.
Right.
So even without, my point is, even without demons being in your game,
mm-hmm.
you could reflavor this to hate any other kind of celestial ancestors you really want.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And it's just a really good archetype. You get access to animal companions.
Mm-hmm.
You get good AoE abilities. Bob's your uncle.
Yeah.
You know what I
You
mean?
can reflavor that to, work against elves.
So anyway, let's talk about the wizard school.
They've got a new school of magic in here.
School of Gates.
School of Gates, because elves are about gates.
So in first edition, the most powerful, arguably the most powerful wizard school was the conjuration school they had in second edition, they had like alternate schools where they would change one of your 2 abilities that you got from the wizard school.
Mm-hmm.
And, or your basically your support abilities got changed, but it was still of the school's theming. So conjuration was summoning things, but conjuration was also teleporting. And the teleporting wizard school was arguably one of the best in the whole game. It gave you access to mobility that could save you from dying. And this does just that.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a great spell selection, just off the bat. Again, like wizards are powerful when they're supporting their group and giving access to mobility or battlefield control that really changes the tide of a battle.
There's one spell on there I really did like.
You did like?
I did like. I really, really liked it.
All right, give it to me.
I forget what it was called, but it's essentially the one where you can do sort of like a limited teleport, like 30 feet.
Yeah.
And there's an image of yourself that remains behind that explodes.
Yes. You're talking about...
Yeah, can you go over that one a little bit?
Is it just the regular spell?
It's a spell, yeah, from that school.
Sudden transportation?
That sounds generic.
No, I mean, the spells are on the left. Forest of Gates... Echo Jump? Oh, yeah, it's Echo Jump. You teleport to an unoccupied space within range. It's a level 3 spell, leaving behind a faint echo of your form that explodes with a magical force. Each creature within a 10-foot emanation from your previous location takes 4d8 force damage.
Yeah.
Basic reflex save.
I just,
Pretty good.
There's our genre, fantasy, movies, whatever, is just full of like, the creature that kind of like fades and kind of does this.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, a snarky little thing. It's like that, but goblin style.
Yeah. Yeah. Force detonation.
Gotta love it.
Bye-bye. Ding, ring, ring, ring. Boom. Yeah, exactly. So getting back to the focus spells for the wizard, Friendly Push literally allows you to move your friends around like little chess pieces.
Yep.
You basically just get to move your friends on your turn 10 feet. Which is amazing for setting up flanks.
Yep.
And getting people closer to their goals, especially if you have a fucking DM who likes to abscond with the BBEG all the time and make them run away.
I don't know what you're talking about.
The 4th level focus spell is a reaction. You take damage from an attack or spell as the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
The range is 20 feet. And guess what? You teleport 20 feet away. As a reaction to taking damage. I know it doesn't sound like it's not the coolest, most thematic thing in the world, but it's fucking good.
Yeah.
It's just fucking good.
Yeah. It's cool. There's no denying it. It's just kind of one note for me.
Yeah, of course it is.
But that's kind of their thing. They're gators. Just the entire ancestry. That's kind of their thing. So
all right, Eric, we can move on from the elves.
Oh, thank God.
Taldor.
I can blunt my ears again.
Now, Taldor is classic, like fucking swords and sorcery knights with feudalistic houses and family espionage.
Empire is in decline. Yeah,
They're
I don't know
on
what to
the
compare
water.
it to.
So they're a coastal city on the Lake Michigan,
Mhm.
if you will.
Beachfront property.
And they've got weird cults going on.
Yeah, when you're an empire in decline, there's a lot of things that come out of the woodwork to kind of take advantage of that. Yeah. So there's a lot of that. I don't really have a hard on for this part of the world.
Mhm. We could tell this whole episode is you shitting
the Shining
on
Kingdoms.
every single one of them.
I spent most of my Pathfinder time on like Varizia.
Yep.
Garund.
Yep.
And Absalom.
Mm-hmm.
I never really nothing about Andoran, Taldor, the dwarf city, the elf city, Druma. It's just I didn't know what to do with those as a GM, and I didn't really feel inspired enough to make characters out of them. But all the other stuff, like the Rise of the Rune Lord stuff, the Chilaxian stuff, all that stuff was kind of inspirational. So I didn't do deep dives into any of this stuff. That's cool, but it also looks like every other cleric of Sarenrae I've ever seen. I don't know. I'm clearly missing something with this particular part of the world, and that's totally okay because so much else hits with me, and it's going to be the reverse for a lot of other folks, and that's totally fine. One thing I did like about this was their emphasis on sort of like performance and spycraft, tradecraft, and like pairing those together.
Yeah.
We got a taste of it in that the Academy's book with the wizard schools.
Right.
What was that called? It was just a minute and a half ago.
Yeah. The book is here somewhere.
Do you have it?
Yes, the wizard school book where they all got together and they were wizards together.
Yeah, something academies.
Yeah,
Rival
Academies.
Thank you.
Yeah.
2 minutes ago. So I like that. That's kind of the twist for me. It's kind of like, I don't know. It feels like the Eastern Bloc tradecraft mixed with dragons, I guess, and declining stuff. And they gave us a couple of archetypes, 2 instead of 1. So I was happy with that.
The Lion's Blade is definitely an archetype.
How do you mean?
The art doesn't really inspire.
That's first edition art, straight up.
Spy to me.
Yeah,
this
it
is
doesn't.
like their first ability allows them to their dedication feat allows them to disguise themselves and as a different ancestry and not even take any negatives.
Right.
And the motherfucker art they have is like a dude dual wielding daggers with like lion armor. He looks like a barbarian wielding daggers.
Yeah.
How is this indicative of a spy? This doesn't inspire what I see mechanically in the book. This is probably the first real art flavor fail that I've seen so far.
There's a bit of a disconnect there. Yeah. I kind of think of them like I think the Red Mantis assassins. When they don their armor, it's a statement. You know what they're there for. When this guy has that goofy ass sharp armor, and all their fucking feats are about like obfuscation and crowd manipulation and concealment with crowds. With armor like that, everybody's going to be bloody as you're moving through that crowd.
Exactly.
It's just
it
was weird. It was a weird choice.
Archetype. This is a very rogue-like archetype that focuses on espionage.
It's vampire obfuscation is how I read this entire thing.
Totally. And then we have
The Ulfengard. I kind of like this one.
Tell
I like
me
this
about
one
it.
a lot.
Why do you like it?
These are bodyguards. Everything they have is about
Protecting allies.
It's about and we just got done doing a Goblinati entry through our Patreon about a special type of magus that performs its function as a role, as a class, is to be a support character for an NPC, to be a bodyguard, to be a Secret Service agent. And then this thing comes out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, man, I knew that was a good idea. It was so good, they did it months later.
Yeah, of course.
So I just on its face, I like it with that. As far as like the feat for feat distinctions, It just kind of feels like a different version of the champion to me, and kind of what I'm hoping the defender thing is going to be in Battlecry.
Yeah.
So it feels like it's in that territory for me. I just enjoy options that help to influence other characters in that particular scene, like protective and interactive of other characters. Because for so many years, builds are all kind of like islands. They just support themselves.
Right.
And, they're vertical builds.
Pathfinder's trying to change that.
And it's trying to change that, right?
It has changed it, I'd argue, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And stuff like this just continues to encourage that mindset. And that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, we're looking at...
Do you have anything special about the feats that you that jumped out at you?
I have to sneeze again.
It's the elves.
Sorry, Goblin. You're allergic to elves? That's too bad. They have a reaction that allows you to follow your friends as they move around, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, they're reaction heavy. Like 3 of them back to back are reactions.
They're reaction heavy for sure. And that makes sense given the protective nature.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's kind of mid to me.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't really engender any intrigue.
Do you feel like they made it mid on purpose so it didn't step on the champion's toes? Because a lot of this feels like it's kind of dipping into champion territory.
I just think that they went so shield protect heavy in the beginning of the edition.
Mm-hmm.
We got so many extra feats from books right at the beginning of the edition that were all shield focused.
Yeah.
It's hard for them to recover that ground again and make anything interesting. The design space when it comes to protecting your allies guy with a shield is just so small. There's very few new patches of land to explore in that area. So making something like this is just difficult.
Yeah.
And that is the end of the countries.
Goblins just one germs. More thing too, because I know a lot of people in second edition have been disappointed with the poison offerings.
Yep.
And the character options in Taldor, they dip pretty good into poisons. So there are some new poisons to choose from.
There's one new poison, Eric. There's the dancer's song. There's one poison in that section. Maybe there's more somewhere else I didn't notice.
Rival academies?
Rival academies had poisons.
Maybe I'm just superimposing that onto this. But yeah, that's the whole thing of the espionage plus the performance and the use of poisons. So between the toxicologist that came out with the APG, the alchemist, from the original, and this stuff here and the poisons you get in Rival Academy, there are some poisons that are in the Agents of Edgewatch adventure path. I think we're getting more positive, poison forward concepts that we can start fucking around with years into this life
It's just
cycle.
hard mechanically to make poisons good because if you do, they'll become
in the short
OP.
term.
Yeah, they just become OP. But so far, I mean, I haven't played a poisoner. I haven't really looked too hard at the poisoner abilities and how it balances game wise. But because of Pathfinder's system, its core system, it's absolutely doable.
Yeah,
you'd have to strike the right
balance.
balance.
The hyper focus on building your character around what you can do in a 6-round combat, a 6-second round and 3 rounds worth of combat. That kind of like takes a lot of the poisons off the table as far as being, useful, if we're going to use that term.
Yeah.
So poisons are definitely more for like things you can do out of combat. They're valuable. Things you can do in combat, they should be viable. Things you can do in downtime, they should be viable.
Right.
But how many games have we played where that's the case? Me, 0.
Right.
But yeah, anyhow, I just wanted to point that out because Taldor poisons, there's a connection there.
Totally.
Moving on.
Let's talk monsters.
Beasts.
My favorite thing from this, obviously, we already talked about it. Crocodile Dragon.
The Florida Dragon.
Count me in. But I will say, we got a new Damon. Damon? Yeah.
Damon. Yeah, they call it Damons.
Bibliodamon.
That's cool. Did you see the Galt artwork?
Yes.
It's in there.
Did.
It's really cool. So and the little guy eating popcorn in the crowd, too.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. So the Bibliodamon is like, the art is amazing. Imagine a humanoid with 4 arms in French garb with like the bib. And the head of it is a fucking mongoose. Weasel. Yeah, weasel.
It reminds me of the Arcanoloth from 2nd edition D&D. But, instead of a fox, it's clear that.
And the art of it is in the French Revolutionary. The iconic investigator is pointing at a legal document. Yeah. and the iconic fighters in chains. They obviously did something wrong, and some aristocrat is getting his ear whispered in by this bibliodemon, which I find just like so.
One of the things I
evocative.
really enjoy about how Pathfinder decided to do their treatment of demons specifically, and I think by extension daemons, is when you die a certain way, you are a demon of that kind of destruction or
Right.
death or whatever. So this daemon it embodies death by paperwork and incompetent bureaucracy. Andoran is the nation of positive bureaucracy. In Andoran, you can roll a d4, and in that many hours, you can get an audience with somebody in government.
Right.
They don't have cell phones in Andoran, and not everybody is a spellcaster with message. So being able to just like get somebody in this 27,000 person city and have an audience to get what you need in 1 to 4 hours, that's some good fucking bureaucracy right there. You can't do that in 1 to 4 days here at the DMV. So this daemon is specifically targeting Andoran and stuff like that. So I thought that was a nice touch too. And he's got that old world, like the British parliamentary wig thing going on.
Yes.
That was cool.
Failed Prophet is another cool. It's a
template.
It's a template.
Yeah.
We haven't seen a lot of those recently, so I love that. It's basically a prophet who tried to become worshipped, and something went wrong.
Yeah, and they've got this really cool ability you can do called Greedy Grab.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically a mugging. They like do a bludgeoning damage, and if they succeed and do damage, then money leaves your pocket.
Yeah, literally.
It's the dumbest thing, but I love it.
It kind of goes back
Again,
to
it's
that.
Final Fantasy.
Yeah, Final Fantasy.
It's very 8-bit fantasy.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other interesting things besides the all-important
Vorvarak, the Florida Dragon. That's
Florida
it.
Dragon?
And again, I always like to bring up the glossary and index because there's a lot of nomenclature, especially since the OGL scandal of last year, that we kind of need to know because elves aren't really elves in Pathfinder. There are various heritages, you know, the Ayuvaran, and the I forget what all the names are, but those are they're distinctive. They have personality. They have meaning. Words have meaning in Pathfinder in ways they just don't in D&D. So yeah, where was I going with that? The glossary. So the glossary is a great way to just sort of like see how they break down all these different kinds of classifications of people and creatures and nations and stuff like that. And again, it's just at a glance. You can just read the fucking entries. They're bold and then a little bit of text, maybe a sentence or so. And it definitely kind of gets you steeped in what it means to be talking the Pathfinder language. So yeah, a lot of people ignore the glossaries, and I think that's a mistake. It's money on the table.
Absolutely.
Love that picture.
Dude, the Florida Dragon is just the coolest thing.
He's got that brass dragon flare with the double flare.
Oh,
on
he
the ridges
does.
on the
Yeah,
back.
you're right.
Yeah,
They
that
go
old
all the way
copper
down
brass
the
thing.
leg or the tail.
Yeah, and
the
he looks
fifth
like he
leg.
lives in a sewer at the same time. It's great.
Exactly.
I think that's
Those
everything I've got.
Trespassing on abandoned canals might come face to face with a Vorvarak,
Mhm.
a large creature that resembles a dragon or crocodile. These terrestrial beasts keep bonds that they disguise with magical illusions using their natural talent for spellcasting. Often mistaken for dragons, Vorvaraks are commonly referred to as canal dragons or mud dragons. However, they aren't truly related to dragons, but rather evolved from local crocodiles and exposure to innate magic of the region of Taldor.
So they're kind of like drakes in that sense. You know, they're dragons. No, they're really not.
Yeah.
They're kind of like they're snake dragons, where these guys are crocodile
They're
dragons.
turtle dragons.
And then there's turtle. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Exactly. It's like the what do they call it? What's that?
One of the slug
The
dragon.
Chinese bear. What is it? The
The
Chinese
panda
bear?
bear?
Panda bear. Yeah, they're not real bears.
Right.
But they have bear in the name.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of the idea.
That's because we're dumb and we need easy words to grasp.
Words are good.
Ah.
Words are good.
All
So
right.
yeah, that's the book, Shining Kingdoms. Eric hates it. I recommend it. Thanks so much for joining us, Goblins.
I hate it.
Oh my gosh. Thanks so much for joining us, Goblins. I really enjoy the book. If you have a friend who wants to get into classic fantasy or wants to get into Pathfinder, this is probably where you start them. Anyway, that's all for us. As always, keep it weird. We'll see you next time.